Can you guys see my screen? Hello. Is my screen visible?
Hi.
Yes,
So can anyone say me what are the stages of software development lifecycle?
Gathering documents and analysis the documents, and after that we'll start writing the code, the design, and according to that we'll start writing the code and we'll close.
Mm, okay. Yeah, it's fine, but you have to remember the names of the stages like planning.
Yeah, requirement analysis, design and coding, testing the process.
Mm, deployment and maintenance.
Main-
Okay. What are the stages in software testing lifecycle? Hmm? Does anyone remember? Like what are the stages in software testing lifecycle?
the requirement analysis, test planning,
Mm,
test environment setup, test
mm,
execution.
mm. Yeah, you have missed like test case design after test plan. It's fine. Yeah, that's correct. So after planning, we will design our test cases and then we will set our environment and then we will execute it. And at last, we have test cycle closure. Okay. Now, let's see about defect life cycle. So whenever you identify a mistake, like after executing your test cases, if you find that something is not working properly, then what you guys will do is you will raise a defect. That means that you're informing the developer that there is a mistake in the application. Can you please fix it? So that is called as defect, and for that also we are having one life cycle. So as soon as you see the defect, so when you see a defect and when you identify it, it will be in new stage. And once you have identified it, you will send it to the developer. You will assign it to a developer. So that the defect will be in assigned state. So then the developer will open the defect and he will verify whether it is a valid defect or not. He will check whether the defect is reproducible, means he'll try to again verify that and whether he is able to see the same as you have informed. So if he thoughts that, like, if he thinks that this is a valid one, then valid defect, then he will fix the defect. But even before you raise, someone in your team has already raised it, then he will mark it as duplicate. You have raised the defect, but it is not a valid one. You have raised an invalid defect. It's not a mistake. Then he will reject the defect. And if a defect is valid, but if the developer is not having like enough time to fix the defect, then he will move it to deferred state. Remember this term deferred? Deferred means it is a valid defect only, whatever you have raised, but the developer himself is not having time to fix it. So that's why he'll mark it as deferred so that he'll fix it in next available time. So once if the defect is valid and the developer has fixed it, he will again send it to us, like to verify whether now that mistake has been corrected or not. So that is called as like retesting. So retesting means if you verify the defect that you have raised has been fixed or not, is called retesting. So after retesting, if you found that the mistake is corrected, if the defect is fixed, then you will mark it as verified and you'll close the defect. But if you are still able to see that there is an issue in that, then you will again reopen the defect and assign it to the developer. Okay. సో మామూలుగా ఏంటంటే ఇప్పుడు మనం ఎప్పుడైనా మనం ఎక్స్పెక్టెడ్ రిజల్ట్‌తో లైక్ మనం ఏదైతే క్లయింట్ ఎక్స్‌పెక్ట్ చేశారో దాంతో మనం ఎగ్జిక్యూట్ చేసినప్పుడు మ్యాచ్ అవ్వలేదనుకోండి. ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ ఇప్పుడు మనం వాలిడ్ యూజర్ నేమ్ అండ్ పాస్వర్డ్‌తో ఇస్తే లాగిన్ అవ్వాలి. ఇన్వాలిడ్ ఇస్తే లాగిన్ అవ్వకూడదు. కానీ ఇన్వాలిడ్ ఇచ్చినప్పుడు కూడా యూజర్ అనేవాడు లాగిన్ అయిపోగలుగుతున్నాడు అనుకోండి. అప్పుడు అది మిస్టేక్ కదా! సో అప్పుడు వి హావ్ టు ఇన్ఫార్మ్ ఇట్ టు ది డెవలపర్. సో అప్పుడు ఏం చేస్తాము మనం ఆ డిఫెక్ట్‌ని ఓపెన్ చేసి లైక్ వి విల్ అసైన్ మన డెవలపర్‌కి. ఐ మీన్ డెవలపర్‌కి అసైన్ చేస్తామనమాట. సో డెవలపర్‌కి అసైన్ చేసినప్పుడు డెవలపర్ చెక్ చేస్తాడు. సో అది నిజంగానే కరెక్టా? కాదా? అని మనం రైజ్ చేసిన ఇష్యూ. సో మనం రైజ్ చేసిన ఇష్యూ ఎప్పుడు ఎలా ఉండాలి అంటే అది డెవలపర్ చెక్ చేసినా, అదర్ టీమ్‌మేట్స్ చెక్ చేసినా, ఎవరు చెక్ చేసినా అది రిప్రొడ్యూసిబుల్ అవ్వాలనమాట. సో వాళ్ళు చూడగలగాలి ఆ ఇష్యూని. అండ్ ఒకవేళ అది నిజంగానే ఇష్యూ అయితే డెవలపర్ విల్ ఫిక్స్ ఇట్. ఒకవేళ అలా కాదు అనుకోండి, అప్పుడు హి విల్ రిజెక్ట్ ఇట్. కానీ మీరు రైజ్ చేసింది వాలిడే. కానీ మీకన్నా ముందే మీ టీమ్‌లో ఇంకెవరైనా రైజ్ చేసేస్తే అప్పుడు మనం దాన్ని డూప్లికేట్ కింద పెడతామనమాట. అండ్ ఒకవేళ మనం రైజ్ చేసింది కరెక్టే. కానీ డెవలపర్ దగ్గర టైం లేదు అన్నప్పుడు డిఫర్డ్ కింద పెడతాడు. సో వన్స్ డిఫెక్ట్ కరెక్టే అయిపోయి డెవలపర్ ఫిక్స్ చేసేస్తే ఈ టర్మ్ గుర్తుపెట్టుకోవాలి మళ్ళీ రీటెస్టింగ్. సో రీటెస్టింగ్‌లో ఏం చేస్తాము, మనం ఏదైతే డిఫెక్ట్ రైజ్ చేసామో అది ఫిక్స్ అయిందా లేదా అనేది చెక్ చేస్తామనమాట. ఆ డిఫెక్ట్‌ని మాత్రమే. అండ్ వన్స్ రీటెస్టింగ్ అయిపోయిన తర్వాత ఒకవేళ మనకి ఆ ఇష్యూ పోయింది, ఇప్పుడు బానే పనిచేస్తుంది అనిపిస్తే వెరిఫైడ్ చేసి లైక్ క్లోజ్ చేసేస్తాము. లేకపోతే రీఓపెన్ చేస్తామనమాట. అర్థమైందా?
Yes, ma'am.
సో, ఇప్పుడు ఈ డిఫెక్ట్‌ని మనం డెవలపర్‌కి చెప్పడానికి సో, వెన్ వి ఆర్ ట్రైయింగ్ టు రైజ్ ఎ డిఫెక్ట్, we will submit few fields, like few form. Like it depends from project to project. In some projects, like in older days, they used to use like Excel sheet only to report the defect as well. But nowadays, no one is using Excel sheet. So you will have a tool called as Jira. So you guys try to just create an account in this Jira Atlassian so that tomorrow you can understand. Like I'll explain you what is like agile methodology and how do we manage our project and all. Then you'll understand. Just create one account. Um, so here, if you click on this create button and if you go to this issue type, you'll find something called as bug. Bug is similar to the defect. Just the terminology is different, bug or defect. And once you have identified a bug, when you have clicked on the create button and selected this bug, you need to give the summary of that defect. This should be a one-liner explanation. Okay, so within one line, you need to fill it. Like for example, user is not able to log in even after giving valid password. If the situation is like even the user has created like giving the valid credentials and still if he is not able to log in, then here you'll give it as user is not able to log in even after giving valid credentials, just a single line summary. And then here you'll give like the detailed description. So like after entering just the explanation, further explanation of it you'll provide in the description, and you'll also give the steps to reproduce. So steps to reproduce is very important because the developer doesn't know where is the defect. He needs to follow those steps in order to identify it. So while you write those steps, you have to make sure that you're not missing any minute step that you have followed. You have to give your test data, like by using which credentials you have identified the defect, or um, whatever the data that you have used in order to find the defect, you have to give the defect and the steps to reproduce. Okay, and then here you will assign it to the developer. And in some project, like here you're not finding that, but you'll also have two fields called as priority and severity. This is like the most common question that they'll ask in interview as well. Like, what is the difference between priority and severity? So priority means like how fast the defect needs to be fixed by the developer. So the developer does not know the criticality of it. Like he doesn't know like whether when he need to fix it. Based on the priority and severity that we provide to him, he will fix the defect. So generally the priority and severity will be like high, medium, low. Under these three categories, you can mark it. um, so you'll give high priority when it is a blocker defect. Blocker defect means because of that particular issue, you are not able to verify any other part of the application. For example, if the login itself is failing, you cannot, if we take Facebook, and if you want to verify the functionalities of Facebook, and if the login itself is not working, you can't view the further information, right? So in those cases, you will give the priority as high. Whereas if it is a small spelling mistake or a color issue, so these we term it as like cosmetic issues. So if you face any cosmetic issue, you will put it under low. And if the issue is critical only, but you're having some workaround, like you're able to verify some other functionalities, then you will give as medium. So if it is a blocker defect, then you will give as high. And if it is a defect, but you are still able to verify some other things, then you will put it as medium. And if it is a cosmetic issue, you will put it as low. This is for priority. And severity means how much critical part of the application got affected. Like, for example, Amazon is an e-commerce application which is developed to purchase a product. But after adding to the cart, if the person is not able to purchase, if he is not able to make a payment successfully, then the use of that e-commerce is not utilized. So in that case, like the critical functionality of the Amazon itself is not working. So then we will give like severity as high. Whereas, like, if that particular functionality is rarely used by customers, for example, there is some filter which is like very rarely used. Uh, so generally, you'll filter the products based on their price and everything, right? So in that one filter, I assume that some particular filter is not being used. So for that, you'll give like medium. And low means it's related to like these cosmetic issues or something like that. Then you will give us low. So tell me one thing now, for example, the company logo itself is not correct. The spelling mistake is present in the logo of the company name. Then what will you give for the priority and severity? Hmm? If the company name is wrong, What can you give for priority and severity? What values will you give? Any guesses? You will give high, medium, low. What one will you give? High. You'll give high because it is the critical part. Because if the company name itself is wrong, the client will come and see and he will ask like, what is the application that you have developed when you are not able to even put my company name right, even though if it is a spelling mistake, but it is related to the client name. So in that cases you have to give severity as high and the priority as high. Okay, you guys need to be interactive. Okay, and here you'll also further give who has reported the defect and the screenshots. So the screenshot is very important because the developer needs to know on which screen it is there, and also it is an evidence for you because once you have raised this issue and if you have not taken a screenshot, the developer might fix the defect and he will say that the issue is not there, please go and verify again. So then in order to prove that it was there before, you need to have the screenshots. So after filling all these fields, you'll just create the defect and it will be assigned to the developer. He will verify whether it is a defect or not from his end. Have you guys understood till here? ప్రయారిటీ అంటే ఎప్పుడైతే ఆ అప్లికేషన్‌లో ఆ డిఫెక్ట్ వల్ల మనం ఇంక వేరేది ఏది వెరిఫై చేయలేకపోతుంటే, అప్పుడు మనం ప్రయారిటీ అనేది హై ఇస్తాము. ఒకవేళ అది స్పెల్లింగ్ మిస్టేక్ అయితే లో ఇస్తాము. అది డిఫెక్టే, ఇష్యూయే. కానీ మనకింకా వేరే విషయాలున్నాయి లైక్ చెక్ చేసుకోడానికి. దెన్ వి విల్ గివ్ ఇట్ యాస్ మీడియం ఇస్తామనమాట. అదే సివియారిటీ వచ్చేసరికేంటంటే, ఆ అప్లికేషన్ అసలు దేనికోసమైతే తయారవుతుందో, ఆ క్రిటికల్ ఫంక్షనాలిటీయే గనక పనిచేయకపోతే, అప్పుడు మనం సివియారిటీ అనేది హై ఇస్తాము. ఒకవేళ అది లైక్ అంత ఇంపార్టెంట్ ఫంక్షనాలిటీ కాదు అన్నప్పుడు మనం మీడియం కానీ, లో కానీ ఇస్తాము. ఓకేనా? అట్‌లీస్ట్ సే యెస్ ఆర్ నో?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
యాహ్! ఓకే. So, yesterday in STLC, we have seen the stage of test planning, right? So, in the test planning stage, there are two documents that will be developed by our team lead or by our manager. Those are called as like test plan and test strategy documents. So the test plan will include like what we are going to test, how many people are required, and um how much cost it is going to take, and what is the entry and exit criteria. There are two things that you need to consider. One is entry criteria, and the other one is exit criteria. So before entering any stage, you will have one entry criteria, and if you want to end that stage, there will be an exit criteria. So for this requirement analysis stage, the entry criteria would be like all the requirements are drafted in a document. If the business analyst have given you a proper document with by filling up all the requirements provided by the client and those are clear, then you can enter into the requirement analysis stage. And the exit criteria would be like you have understood all the requirements and then there are no doubts and you are thorough with them, then you can say that the requirement analysis stage is done. And for the test planning, the entry criteria would be like the requirement analysis is done, like you have understood all the requirements. And the exit criteria would be the test strategy and the test plan documents are ready. And for the test design, the entry criteria is the test planning is done and we are thorough with the requirements. And the exit criteria would be the all the test cases are written and there is a term called as requirement traceability matrix. Mm, mm. So it is also called as RTM. So that requirement traceability matrix. So what does this document do? So whatever the test cases that we have written, those will be mapped with the requirements. So to ensure that no requirement is missed from the testing perspective, what we do is we mark every test case with at least one requirement, so that when we verify the requirements, we can see that all the requirements are covered during our testing process. Okay, so that I'll show you the document some other day. But remember, the term requirement traceability matrix means whatever the test cases that you have written, you will map it with the requirement. Okay, so for today, remember only these things because I don't want to stress you guys. Tomorrow, we will see like how to write the test cases and we will learn some testing types. We'll go further. Okay,
Okay, ma'am.
we'll continue tomorrow. Bye, everyone.